Hey guys, welcome back. So now getting into Empyre, X-Men, which is one of those things, and like, to be frank about Empyre entirely, with the whole Kree-Skrull alliance led by Hulkling versus the Kotati, like one of the things I've been super curious about has been how would this affect the X-Men and the island of Krakoa, and even more so the Krakoan technology that's been booming since House of X. And we start to see a bit of those effects in Empyre X-Men issue 1. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch us spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so just to take about 30 seconds to catch up with what we haven't talked about with Empyre so far, because really as far as covering that event like on here, like I really feel like it's gonna go direct to big spill. And don't take me wrong, that's not me throwing any shade at the event, but for me personally, I just find that the tie-ins draw a bit more of my attention and interest. And for that reason, at least for the foreseeable future, much of my talks about Empyre, they'll just be trickled into the other conversations that we have about the events that are affected directly from it. Unless you guys request for me to get more thorough, then in that case, we'll talk more Empyre. But to pretty much sum up from where we left off, from our talk about Meet the Skrulls to Road to Empyre issue 0, you essentially have the Kree and Skrulls teaming up under the appointed leadership of Hulkling in raging war against the Kotati. And I got a link below where we get into way more detail about Meet the Skrulls and how that led to the Road to Empyre, in case you want a bit more detail about current day spy Skrulls or the history of the Kotati. But eventually what this led to was the Avengers and the Fantastic Four getting caught between this war between Sequoia, the Celestial Messiah, who's initiating an event called the Flowering so that the Kotati and all the plant life could just take the universe back. Cause at this point he just believes that all mammals ain't shit. But where this brings us getting into Empyre X-Men, it actually takes us back a year ago when Scarlet Witch went to see Doctor Strange at the Sanctum Sanctorum. And it's here that we find out that for some time she's been trying to undo the damage that she did from Decimation and getting rid of 90% of all mutants. And Strange lets her know like he understands where she's coming from because she feels terrible about what she did and she wants to fix it. But from her taking all of those mutants' powers and erasing 1 million mutants from existence, undoing that decimation isn't as easy as just doing it backwards. And from there he lets her know that there's no spell that's gonna just fix it because that bell has been rung. And he lets her know like the way the bells are set up, like once you ring them you can't just unring it. And from there all you can really do is just 1, accept the fact that you rung that bell, and 2, after that make a decision. Like, are you just gonna live with that fact or decide to ring a larger bell to atone for it? And Scarlet Witch just takes that advice as, I bet I'm gonna ring a bigger bell. Which from there takes her to Genosha, because prior to this point Wanda thought since she had caused decimation that there had to be a way that she could undo it. But after talking to Doctor Strange and figuring out that that wasn't possible, she then figured, well okay, if she can't fix what she did, then she'll find a way to fix something worse. Because when Wanda caused decimation, that took 1 million mutant lives, which shot her up to number 2 on the mutant extinction event list. And on that list she's only second to the genocide on Genosha, which had taken 16.5 million mutant lives. And with that in mind, she figured if she could fix number 1, then perhaps she could be redeemed for being the cause of number 2. And as a result, this then led Scarlet Witch into cultivating power from a number of sources in order to channel a power that would resurrect 16.5 million mutants. And with her doing this, it's really coming from a place of desperation and guilt, rather than her just doing it for someone's forgiveness, but instead for her, it's like her solution to the pain that she feels for what she's caused. And she's hoping that with this tremendous deed, that it'll then help her to be able to sleep at night. But when she does this resurrection spell, it does not go the way that she intended, but instead it creates another situation, which we'll get into a bit more about in just a little bit. But fast forward to current day, 1 month later, here in Genosha, you have the Kotati who have arrived in order to scout and set up an invasion for Wakanda, to where this is one of 4 strike teams from the Kotati invasion fleet taking their positions and doing reconnaissance before they actually make their move. And as they brief their attack, we do see that they got their eye on that vibranium. But also when this group arrives here, we also get the inkling that they're not too familiar with Earth, and mainly because when they land, they make mention that they had to chase off some of the life forms here, to where when they did, they captured one for questioning. And when he was talking, they couldn't understand what he was saying, and they was like, oh, it must be some indecipherable dialect. But no, they then figured out that his jaw was missing, and that's why they couldn't tell what he was saying. But on top of that, they didn't really realize that this dude was a zombie. Like, this ain't what humans supposed to be looking like. But kindly enough, this particular zombie, he was nice enough to fill them in on a little bit of knowledge. Because one, he let them know that he's a mutant, and when they didn't know what a mutant was, he was kind enough to explain that to them too. And on top of that, he even went as far to let them know that his name was Explodey Boy, and he even gave them an example with a little bit of look what I can do. But with Explodey Boy doing a bit of exploding, the Kotati didn't take kind to it, so they then attempted to kill him, but for him it just tickled. But when this happens, it's also here where Explodey Boy lets them know that they literally could not have picked a worse place to land. Because here on Genosha, these zombies are the mutants who Scarlet Witch tried to resurrect, which was a process that clearly went wrong. But on top of that, out of the 16.5 million mutants which she tried to resurrect, not only did they come back as zombies, but out of that 16.5 million, 2 million of them were vegetarians, which is a Kotati nightmare. And I just imagine, like, instead of these zombies running around saying brains or something crazy like that, but instead these zombies would be more likely to walk around saying something like salad, at least for the appetizer. Because once again, they're vegetarians, and who knows, they might have been bougie in their past life. But just before we get to see them take a bite into some Kotati, we then jump over to Angel and Penance, who have been handling more of the face-to-face meetings that take place between X-Corp and the humans in whichever respective country. But it's during this time when they're getting ready to go to their next meeting when they're met by the arrival of Magic. And I gotta say, like, it really feels like with Angel, like us seeing Angel eat the salad, like take a bite and throw the rest away, like it's a bit of a message to the way that mammals treat the plants in a way. Like, I don't know, might just be me. But when Magic arrives here just before their meeting, she lets them know that Sunspot is taking care of a lot of this stuff already, even with everything that we've seen that's been going on throughout New Mutants. And on top of that, she lets them know, like, as a matter of fact, she's stopping this meeting before it even starts because Charles has requested both Angel and Penance to head back to Krakoa. And when she does this, it's mainly because she's been ordered by Charles as a great captain to more or less determine if what they're doing or if X-Corp as a whole is too redundant. And initially they feel some type of way because they feel like she's been spying on them, and I mean, it doesn't help that she's dressed like a spy, but with Charles sending her out to monitor redundancy, it actually makes a lot of sense. Because prior to this point, X-Corp's main responsibility, it was handling investigations and making sure that mutants' rights weren't being abused or violated on an international scale. But fast forward to now, at this point, with Krakoa being a nation and all, and the restructuring of teams like X-Force and X-Factor, they now have other groups that do the same thing and more. But even with doing so, Charles has to be careful of just making sure that Krakoa's staff, if you will, is just completely optimized. Because all in all, the mutants are outnumbered greatly by the humans, and for that reason, Charles has to make sure that he doesn't have just a bunch of mutants out doing the same job. And it's for that reason, Magic, the great captain, she pulls Penance and Angel from the meeting and takes them right back to Krakoa. And when they get back, we hear like the tail end of the conversation between Black Tom, Xavier, and Magneto. And it's here where Black Tom is telling them that the gate in Genosha, that is not malfunctioning because of his condition. And we talk more about his condition on the X-Force playlist, link below. But he lets Charles and Magneto know that it's not because of him that this gate in Genosha is acting up, but instead that there's something else out there choking this gate, and that Charles needs to send someone to check it out, because the last thing that Black Tom wants is this to be the beginning of another attack that'll end with Charles being killed, because he's really not trying to have that happen again on his watch. But it's also here where we see Xavier and Angel go a bit deeper into the conversation of why Xavier is checking for redundancies throughout the Krakoan mutant resources. And initially, Angel's a bit defensive, saying that Krakoa needs X-Corp mainly for the benefit that it's doing for mutants around the world, but Charles expresses that he doesn't mind losing X-Corp because he's more focused on the mutants like Angel himself and placing him where he could be more effective, rather than having these buildings just all across the globe for mutants just to show up in these meetings and more or less not benefit their country to their full potential. But right after Angel's finished talking with Charles, it's here where Angel immediately gets to going with the next task, which is checking out what's going on in Genosha. And when he does, he starts going down this list of everybody he wants to take with him to Genosha, but Magneto's like, nah, I'm gonna stop you right there. You get to take one person. And it's mainly because Magneto's enforcing what Charles had said about the mutants working without excessive redundancies, which is something I feel like will make a bit more sense once we get into X-Factor. But long story short, it mainly has to do with the resurrection process struggling to keep up with the amount of deaths that the mutants been having. But Magneto doesn't get into all that. He just tells Angel like in addition to penance and magic, he gets to take one more person. And at that point, Angel's like, okay, cool, I'm taking multiple man. Which, by the way, was a clutch call, because when they got there, not only did they run into the vegetarian zombies chomping on Kotati left and right, but also they more or less heard the zombies talking about today was their cheat day. And after they finished this salad, they're gonna move on to eating meats. And when they got there, they were pretty much the main course. But they had also quickly noticed that the Kotati plants, like they were what was choking the gate. And in order to get it working again, they needed to hurry up and get to whacking some weeds. But even still, this was a delicate situation, because if you just go to hacking at this gate, which is definitely what Magic was getting ready to do, but if you just go in hacking at this gate, you could easily cut the wrong vine and then the gate just won't work. And as a quick suggestion, Multiple Man is then like, okay, well 60 unskilled, don't know what they doing hands coming up. So quickly Multiple Man gets to snatching the Kotati vines and the gate just starts back up. But it's here where Penance is like, wait a minute, these are Genoshan zombies, so they have a mutant gene, dead or alive. Which then means if they hit that gate, they're gonna go through because they're mutants and then bring this problem to Krakoa. And just before they can squeeze their way through, they're hit with this green goop, which blocks them from the gate and begins to melt them down. And it's here where we find that Krakoa was saved from a zombie attack by Horticulture. Yep, the dystopian super science Golden Girls are back. And to say the least, they're not too pleased to how the mutants have been handling their plant technology. And they kind of give out the vibe that they're not too fond of the zombies either, because they solved the issue within the immediate radius of the gate. But at this point in time, with them taking out probably like a couple hundred zombies, there's still well over 16 million wandering on this island. But before we go, real quick, I just want to give a shout out to all the Patreons. Thank you guys for all your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can head to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let me know your thoughts altogether about Empyre. And you can leave those here in the comments or meet me over on Discord, either way. But as far as Empyre X-Men, it's a 4-part series, so we'll be digging into that anyhow. But aside from that, as of right now, I really plan on leaning more towards more talks on the Ten of Swords playlist. But ultimately, that's up to you guys. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or hit me on Discord, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.